You're entering the MSP Zone, a podcast for the managed services community, covering news, analysis, and interviews from around the globe. Elevate your MSP game by staying in the MSP Zone. And now, your host, Charles Weaver.
How to convert a reactive customer into a proactive customer. Put differently, how do you take a break-fix customer and make them into a managed services client of yours? This has been an ongoing debate for MSPs for decades, and I think there's a very simple approach, especially applied in today's environment, that will be very effective. I'm going to give you 3 easy steps that any MSP of any size, doesn't matter how big or small you are, any MSP can do this, and it might have some really shocking results for you. All right, let's dive in. What we're talking about is in the modern era, right? We're in 2024 now. There's a ton of stuff that is helpful to you as the MSP to convince your customers about why reactive is no longer effective, right? It should be abandoned. Everybody knows this. Now we're trying to force change. We're trying to force adoption of positive change, better security, lower risk. You all know the drill. Step number 1 is you have to communicate that what I'm about to explain to you is going to happen. You have to let your clients, your break fix, your reactive customers, all right? Now, here's the trick. You know who a break fix customer is versus a managed services customer. I'm not talking about customers that pay you on a monthly basis for block hours. Block hours is not managed services. If you think that it is, it's not. But the point is you have to go for, regardless of how you bill these customers, you have to go to the reactive, the unmanaged customers and communicate to them that this thing is going to happen. Why do you have to communicate it? Well, number 1, you have to get their time commitment. You have to get their buy-in. You have to let them know that, hey, we're going to do, if I was the MSP, I would say to my customer, hey, we're going to be doing a cybersecurity assessment and review for you. It's not going to cost you anything. I suppose you could charge for it, but I personally wouldn't. We're not going to charge you anything for it, but we do need your participation. And you have to start letting them know that what this is an assessment to understand, for you, the MSP, how prepared they are for certain cyber events. And it's it'll be viewed, if you sell it in the right way, in a very positive way. There's a lot of educational knowledge that can come out of such an exercise, and you're going to get a lot of information about what the client does and does not do. Especially, remember, you're not a managed services company to them right now. They're a reactive client, and so you probably don't have a lot of visibility to certain areas of their business, and this exercise is going to help you learn those areas. Communication is step 1. Step 2, you're going to put those reactive customers through a baseline assessment. What does that mean, baseline? You're going to perform essentially a compliance or a security control baseline exercise. Here's what I would recommend. You may think you have something already, something like a questionnaire that you downloaded off the web. I'm talking about something a little bit more formal. It's not going to come with a certification. You're not certifying them. You're not auditing. You're not testing them. What you're simply doing is doing a baseline exercise, an assessment exercise of the reactive company's existing controls, policies, procedures, documentation. There are 2 free frameworks, accessible frameworks, meaning you can download and view their controls from the web and use them freely. Remember, there's no certification at the end of this. You're not doing that type of an engagement. You're simply going to grab, let's say, if you're in the United States or in Canada, I would recommend starting with CIS. If you're not in North America and you're wondering what a good framework would be for those reactive customers, I would probably go with ISO 27001. 27001. Look it up. Easy. Either one of those frameworks will give you a list of controls that you can then start to pre-fill with your customers. Before you even have the meeting, you can start to pre-fill based on what you know or likely know the customer is or isn't doing and start to mark those off. And you can do this by yourself with just a spreadsheet. It's really simple. There's no, if you don't want to spend much time or money doing this and you want to do it yourself and you want to do it kind of down and dirty, grab a spreadsheet, go to the web, grab the controls from either of those frameworks, put them in the spreadsheet, and then start putting a column for customer response. And it's that simple. If you want to get a little bit more detailed, or you don't want to risk making a mistake, contact MSP Alliance and we can help you set up something very simply. The point is, it's accessible. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and it can have amazing results, as we'll see in step 3. But the baseline exercise has to take place. I would recommend making it a forced meeting. It doesn't have to be an in-person meeting. It could be a web meeting. It could probably be done in about an hour. And again, if you don't charge for it, which I don't think you have to, it's an incredible value to the customer, and you are going to get a ton of intel out of that exercise. What are you going to get out of it? You're going to get out of it where the customer's gaps are. Again, from a control gap, process gap, procedure gap, or a documentation gap. All 4 things are very, very relevant to most of the major globally accepted control-based frameworks out there today. And all 4 are necessary for customers, organizations to be operating in an effective manner in today's environment, especially with all the risk that we have going on out there, cyber risk. But that's what the outcome of step 2 is going to be. That security or compliance baseline, that's really both, is and should give you a wealth of information about the customer, what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they think they're doing, but they're not doing. You get where I'm going. And all that's going to be documented. Now we go into step 3. Step 3 is the really critical part. You drop the hammer. It's being a little aggressive, but all right, you lay on your customer the results of the assessment and your findings and recommendations, right? That's really what we're getting at. And here's where I'll probably say that the first example is highly unlikely, and that would be a customer that performs relatively well. Remember, they're a reactive customer. So for them to be a reactive customer with you and to perform very well in that security assessment or compliance assessment is probably unlikely. Why is it unlikely? Because they would have to be either doing it themselves internally, which means that they would have a very robust internal IT department, and or they are also having a relationship with another MSP who's doing that work for them. Why is that unlikely? Because if they had either of those 2 things, why would they be working with you in a reactive break-fix manner? I suppose it could happen, but it's just probably unlikely. So, all right, now we've dealt with that. What is more likely going to be the vast majority of scenarios here is in this assessment and recommendation and advisory step 3, is you're going to find a handful, if not significant gaps benchmarked against either of these 2 control frameworks, right? You're going to find through CIS or through ISO the customer not doing something, probably multiple things that they need to be doing. These are going to be more likely, and this is again where if you want some help, MSP Alliance can help you, whereas the spreadsheet won't come with this type of advisory. You're going to have to know how to answer these questions, but I'm giving you the description of what's taking place underneath, all of this. Is you're going to be going through and telling them all of these gaps. Let's say there's control gaps, maybe there's some policy or procedure gaps that aren't taking place. These are more than likely recurring controls. A recurring control means something that has to be performed not just once and you forget about it and you never do it again. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a recurring control. An example, a very simple recurring control would be, are you backing up your data on a regular basis? That's a control that you better do it today. And guess what? You better be doing it tomorrow. And you better do it the day after, and the day after that, and the day after that, and a year from now, and 10 years from now. Backing up data is a recurring control. And there are many, many examples of that in both CIS and in ISO that you can use to explain to your customers why non-compliance in that and all the other areas is really important for them to fix. And what's the fix? Well, it's not by mistake that the compliance nature of becoming compliant in these frameworks and other frameworks is resolved either by doing it internally or using an MSP. And so you can do one of a couple of things with that reactive customer who is not in compliance or below your security baseline. All right. Number one, you can terminate the relationship and just say, look, if you're not willing to come over and become a managed services customer, which is the outcome you're driving for is non-compliant reactive customer becomes proactive managed services customer. That is what you are aiming for. If they won't do that, and hopefully that's a vast minority of your clients, you can stop working with them. You can terminate the commercial relationship with that reactive customer and just say, look, we can't do this anymore. We can't help you. You're at risk to yourself. You're a risk to us. We can't scale by taking care of you and others like you. We can't do this anymore. It's done. It's over. Or you keep them, and I understand why you might have some reactive customers that for political and financial and probably some other, maybe personal reasons, you can't terminate the relationship. You increase rates. You increase rates enough that it stings and it lets them know that you're serious. And maybe after a little while, they get tired of that and they say, hey, we're going to come over to your managed services side of the house. Those three steps, effectively combining a compliance or a security assessment using a neutral third-party control framework. I used CIS or ISO 27001 in those two examples, plus combining what we call a risk-based pricing model and fusing those two things together and doing it under a security review, an assessment, compliance review, call it whatever you want. That level of review will do a lot to educate your customer about cybersecurity, why you take these things so seriously as their MSP or their soon-to-be MSP, hopefully, and why they need to change behavior and become current in their operations. And that has to take place. It has to take place sooner or later. And if you can do these three simple steps, I think you'll have a very high likelihood of converting, I hope, all or a majority of your reactive customers into proactive or managed services customers. Give it a try. You might be surprised.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you will get notified when future episodes are released. We will see you next time in the MSP Zone.